Hola mis amigos, welcome to season 1, episode 1 of Cooking Amigo. We're making homemade chocolate candy bars. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is determine what base we want to use for our chocolate. So we do have a couple of options here. One option here is some raw organic cocoa butter, and another is some extra virgin coconut oil. But one thing to keep in mind is that coconut oil does have a melting point at 76 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you do make your chocolate with the coconut oil, you will have to store your chocolate in the refrigerator. But both options do deliver a great tasting chocolate with all of the health benefits that you're looking for. It's just a matter of what temperature you want your chocolate to be at. For me personally, I prefer my candy bars to be at room temperature, so I am going for the cocoa butter method. But I do recommend you to start off with coconut oil first, just to kind of get the chocolate making process figured out, because coconut oil is cheaper. A really good raw organic cocoa butter is going to cost you at least $15 per pound. So before you splurge out on that, give the coconut oil a try, and you might actually like that method if you like your chocolate to be refrigerated. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with equal parts of whatever base you have decided on and some cocoa powder. So I am using these candy molds here from Amazon. I spent about $5, a little less than $5 for this candy bar mold. And I have found that 1/3 cup or so of a base and 1/3 cup of cocoa powder, that will do the trick. And really, these are the only two major ingredients to make the chocolate itself, your base and your cocoa powder. So what we want to do first is we're going to go ahead and melt down our base. So I'm going to pop this in the microwave. You want to do this for just a few seconds at a time until it's just melted, and then you'll just sort of temper the rest of it to completely melt it out. So we'll be back once that's finished. Okay, so we are back with our melted cocoa butter here, and there is one stubborn chunk in there that did not want to melt down, but we don't want to overheat it in the microwave. So what we're going to do is just whisk it a bit, and we're sort of tempering it right now, and it will eventually melt. So there we have it. We are pretty much all melted down. So now at this point, what we want to do is add in our cocoa powder. So remember, we're using equal parts of cocoa powder to cocoa butter or coconut oil. And what I am going to do here is I'm just using a tea strainer to strain as much of our cocoa powder. Let me switch hands here. To strain as much of our cocoa powder as we can into the strainer, just to try to get rid of as many clumps as we can. If some of it does fall in, that will be okay. It's not that big of a deal. We'll just whisk it out. But the key is to try to help it along and get it nice and sifted. Okay, I'm just going to go in here with a spoon and just kind of stir that around, get that all in the bowl. All right, so with the exception of a little bit of a mess that I've made on the counter, we have pretty much sifted everything into our cocoa butter. So now what we're going to do is just whisk it a bit and make sure that everything is thoroughly blended. And just make sure that you scrape down the sides of your bowl, or in my case a soup cup that I am using, just to make sure that we've gotten all of that cocoa powder well incorporated. And honestly, at this point, you're done. You could even pour it right into your candy mold right now and enjoy a chocolate bar. But This is, you know, raw cocoa powder, raw cocoa butter. So it isn't sweet at all right now. So at this point, you can add whatever your favorite sweetener is. You can add some raw local honey. You can add some agave. You can add sugar. You could try confectioner's sugar if you're going to add sugar. Your regular granulated sugar might be a little bit too gritty. It might get your chocolate bars to have sort of a gritty consistency. So you might not want to do that, but you could try something like a simple syrup or something. I am going to use some honey. And you want to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons or so. It really depends on how sweet you want your chocolate bars to be. And if you can get your hands on some local honey, that would actually be best, and it would help out with your allergies. So I'm going to go for 3, but you really have to taste your chocolate as you go along just to make sure that it's exactly how you want it to be. So just go ahead and get that nice and whisked in. And at this point, you can also add in some nuts if you prefer, or you can even add in some flavor. So if you like something like Andes mint, then you might enjoy adding some peppermint extract to it. Another option is something like almond extract. You can even add vanilla extract. Really, the possibilities are endless. You can add whatever flavor you desire into your chocolate. I'm just going to make a nice plain sweet chocolate. So really at this point we are prepared to start adding it into our mold. It doesn't take as much as you think to fill up each bar. But this recipe should be enough to fill out all 3 of your bars. Okay, so I've taken the back of a spoon and just sort of spread these out a little bit more evenly. And as you can see, we have some perfectly sized bars here. And you can just sort of wipe off the edges if you end up spilling anything. Not that big of a deal. So the next thing that you want to do is just pick up your mold and drop it a few times just to make sure that there are no air bubbles in there. And it also helps to ensure that we are spreading everything nice and evenly. And don't worry, as you can see, it's not flying all over the place. It's not going anywhere. It's pretty thick and sturdy. All right, so at this point, we are ready to go ahead and pop this in the refrigerator for about an hour. I actually prefer to put it in the freezer because it only takes about 20 minutes for it to set in the freezer. If you decided to go the cocoa butter route, you can actually also let it set at room temperature for about 1 to 2 hours. But again, the quicker way is to just throw it in the freezer for about 20 minutes and you will be good to go. So I'm going to put this in the freezer for about 20 minutes and I will be back to show you the result. Alright guys, so we are back. I've taken them out of the freezer and I just want to show you how easy it is to get these guys out of the candy bar mold. So I'm just going to go straight for the center one here. And boom, it lifts right up. And as you can see, it took the form of our mold very nicely, and it actually does look like a Hershey bar. So there you have it. Here are our homemade chocolate bars, and I did go ahead and break a few pieces off to show you how easily they do break apart. So these molds are actually perfect. And again, since I did make them with the coconut, or cocoa butter rather, they will last just fine. These are completely vegan, they are organic, they are paleo, and they're loaded with the healthy fats and antioxidants that we actually need in our systems every day. So this is a great treat, nice and sweet and indulgent, but it's totally guilt-free. So there you have it, homemade chocolate candy bars. Enjoy, and I'll see you at the dinner table.